Hey everyone, welcome to Humanology on Air. My name is Jeeves, and this is not Josiah.
No, it is not Josiah. My name is Andrew. I'm a account executive here at Jan Kelly, and I'm stepping in for Josiah today.
Yeah, and Andrew is the perfect co-host today because not only does Andrew consume a lot of TikTok content, he also creates.
I do create TikToks. Shameless plugs. Can I do a shameless plug? Shameless plug. Sweet period Andrew. Go follow.
Yeah,
like some of my
follow,
videos.
like, subscribe.
Yeah,
Especially, I
do it
don't
all.
know how that works, but anyway. So today we're talking to Neil Cameron. He is the head of agency partnerships at TikTok, and we're gonna kind of jump off. So last time we talked to Neil, it was really talking about why we should be on TikTok, why brands should be on TikTok. So this is more about the how and, grabbing onto trends and creative codes, he calls them.
Yes, and speaking of trends, Jeeves, what is your favorite type of content to consume on TikTok?
I don't know if it's trendy, but I like to watch like power washing.
I would say it's a trend.
Is it?
Oddly satisfying videos.
Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah, what
totally.
about you?
Yeah, I mean, it's a trend for my market, I guess, but I'm trying to get more into meal prep.
Okay.
So I'm getting inspo from a lot of different content creators for some good meal prep recipes. So
Nice.
that's been what I've been into.
Feel free to tell us what kind of content you consume. We're interested.
Yeah. Should we get into it?
Let's do it.
Awesome.
Okay. Hey everyone, welcome back to Humanology on Air. We have Neil Cameron with us.
Woo!
Yay! Back by popular demand.
I know. It's really great to be here. This last time, when was I here? That was like a
year ago.
A year ago. Wow. Yeah, a lot's gone on.
Yeah, tell us what has changed.
What has changed in
In
the
a year.
world? Like a
In a
lot
year.
has gone on.
Okay, you know
I
what?
would say for us, what's been wild. Okay, I'm gonna make it about me. I'm gonna make it about TikTok. Honestly, what's been wild has just been the conversations that we're having. And it's just so completely changed and evolved, and people's understanding of the platform. And it's just been really exciting to watch, but it's less now, because I feel last time I was here, I feel like it was like a hard sales pitch. It was a bit of the why, right? It was kind of like, why does it matter? Why now?
Yeah.
Why are we seeing this sort of, just this platform just take off the way it's done? And now it's really about like the how. And now it's really weird. The conversations we're having is like people pulling me aside, literally like clients being like, we love the platform. How do we approach it? Where do we start? We're freaking out. We want to be here. We know we need to. And so that part's what's really exciting. And to get to talk about that is actually a lot of fun.
Well, and I think your hard sell actually won us over, because now I'm proud to announce
Yes.
Jan Kelly is on TikTok.
What?
Yes. I am
This is really
the
big.
self-proclaimed, I'm not the self-proclaimed, but I am the mayor of Jan Kelly TikTok.
And
so.
how does it feel? I didn't bring any merch. I would have brought merch had I known. What's that process been like, and what's that learning curve been like?
Yeah, no, I think, I've been on TikTok myself previously before jumping on to Jan Kelly TikTok. And I really think that there's a lot of learnings that I've been able to pull from, my own personal content that I've created and what I found has worked and, what I found has not worked. So bringing that into almost the world of, hey, we're a marketing agency, we're doing some fun, exciting stuff here, get other people excited about Jan Kelly, whether, it's a future client or it's people who might want to work with Jan Kelly, showing off the culture. It's a lot of fun. It's a good time to be on TikTok.
Andrew, in his own personal life, has 15,000
Are you serious?
followers.
That is impressive. Like, that is a significant number.
Yeah.
And it's funny, we sort of forget that when you actually sort of like total it up. I remember like back in the day working for a big magazine that had like 100,000 subscribers, was like the biggest, do you know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like, you forget that there is a responsibility, and that audience is certainly, it's nothing to...
Yeah.
It's nothing to laugh at. That's really impressive.
Yeah.
Thank
So
you.
now
You're
you
welcome.
are the mayor of like the Jan Kelly
Okay.
brand.
Okay.
And
It's a lot of weight. It's a lot of weight on my
I
shoulders,
bet.
let me tell you.
what's that process like? Well, we're still a brand, and if you have your own branded TikTok account, you know that it's very hard to actually make content and get it up and do all those things. But you're doing it, so
It's fun.
good for you.
Yeah.
Good for you. No, it's wild because we've seen so many trends, and there's been a lot of work we've been doing just to really understand those, and even just to sort of like report back some of the stuff we're seeing on the platform. And one of the biggest things we're seeing right now is this notion of actionable entertainment, which is this philosophy that like performance media and traditional performance marketing, those practices are dead. Like clickbait is over. I remember there was a while where there was a pair of slacks from a men's retailer that was essentially sort of haunting me. They were following me everywhere I went online. And so that's why we talk about this notion of like actionable entertainment, which I think is really cool to watch, which is really the notion is like bring entertainment value to the table and just make it believable. And so one of the best examples we've seen of really actionable entertainment was, I don't know if you've seen this, so Canadian Tire promoting their red triangle app. Okay. So like a traditional like app, promotion ad is like download today, save. Yeah. And this TikTok they created is this creator's just like floating head over like a tutorial of the app, and the creator's just like, I was paid to do this. Look what's happening now. And meaning that it's like genuinely entertaining. Like it respects me and like rewards me for giving them my time, and at the same time I'm learning about and seeing the full sort of app experience. So I'd say that's one of the biggest trends that we've seen lately, which I find is like game changer. Let's make advertising, do I say it?
Say it.
Fun again.
And you know what? I was thinking about this too, and Jen and I were talking before this. As a consumer on TikTok, I'm less likely to watch, and I'm just going to say it. I know that we're in marketing, but I'm going to say it. As a consumer, I'm not going to watch an ad on TikTok if I know it's an ad, right? If I can see very clearly within a second that this is an ad, I don't want to watch an ad right now. I deal with ads all the time at work. I want to escape work. I want to put on something fun and watch it quick. So I'll scroll right past. But if it's native to the platform and it's using a content like creator or influencer, and I engage with that influencer already, and they're going to be doing some sort of branded thing, like how you mentioned, I'm more inclined to watch that because that to me feels A, more natural on the platform, and B, it feels like it resonates more with me versus like download our app today.
100%. Yeah. We've seen this first trend, which is certainly actionable entertainment, but this ties into what you were talking about, which is this notion of like just making space for joy. We're all just thirsty for it. We all want to lap it up. And that's just sort of to that point about how you connect with people and break through. And that's sort of like that other sort of like winning formula is just find little moments, and brands have the ability, just give me some joy. Like what a beautiful equation. And it's funny because sometimes joy can come from the least obvious place. And I think that's what I always find is so fascinating. And that's why I like that Red Triangle app thing is you're like, this is performance marketing 101. Yeah. And yet there's that element of it's self-referential. It gets it. It also understands the role it's trying to do. And sometimes I think as marketers, it's like, let's just be real with me. Like, I know what you're doing, so let's have fun with it and sort of relinquish a bit of that control. I mean, I don't know. You talk to clients all day. What are they saying?
Not that.
No?
No, I mean, it's hard for brands to self-own. Like, in like the idea of a creator being like, I was paid to do this. I don't know, guys. I'm just taking you through an app. Like, it's like that is funny, but like that takes guts. That, brands have to warm themselves up to brands have to warm themselves up to doing that kind of stuff.
Yeah, but I think there's also a way, and consumers are also smart enough to understand. Like, we know when we see a brand anthemic spot, right? We know when we see that $1 million like production, when we see that TVC that's just like full of celebrity. Like, I think that's the other thing that's interesting just to watch, and some brands are really getting it, is that like consumers can also be open and accepting of really lo-fi production, low quality content, and it performs just as well.
So you brought with you 6 creative codes.
I did.
And I would like you to tell us what those are.
Okay, so we've had this conversation earlier. I'm of an age, can't remember things like I used to, so I wrote them down. So I'm clearly reading from cards. I want to be completely honest with your audience because they're worthy of it. So the 6 codes are TikTok first, connect with trends, be production principled, which is a really interesting one, and this is one that I want to like dig in on, especially relative to you as a creative agency. Stick to a structure, hold attention, and ultimately build with sound, which is sort of a piece we talked about. So TikTok first, I think, is the most straightforward, and it's really that notion of like create content that looks like all the other content on the platform. So when you're building a TikTok, make it mobile first.
Yeah.
Use those native tools. Like, that is the easiest thing to do. Again, is just like create the way the community's creating. Really think about that toolbox that they're using and embrace it and play with it. And when you talk about TikTok first, I think the one brand that's really acing it is Lululemon. And it's amazing to watch because I consider them like a premium brand, and they've not lost their brand identity, but they produce content, and they have content on the platform with their creators who are basically shooting off a mobile phone in their apartment. Like, this is the most lo-fi production quality stuff you've ever seen. But the community understands it. They look at it because it's become from a creator. They understand that this is a brand ambassador and that this is sort of a lens or a filter that the brand has gone through. And it doesn't rub off on sort of like that master brand. So I'd also say when thinking of creating, or those clients that don't know how to get on platform, is to work with a creator and let that create that distance, between, the brand, right? So again, maybe you don't use your chief brand ambassador in the content or you're producing for TikTok, whether it is working with an intern or someone from the sales floor or someone who's like in the day-to-day of the business, can also create, I find, like that good sort of divide and still protect that brand integrity, which is, what so many marketers are concerned about.
Right.
So that's TikTok first.
Yeah.
I think connect with trends is hopefully pretty straightforward. But I think the big thing that people don't understand, we've done a lot of work in understanding this, is that there are different types of trends on the platform, and they behave differently. And if you use TikTok, after a while, I'm going to, again, read these out, but as a user, you're like, I know exactly what he's talking about. So we think about them in three ways. There's moments, there's signals, and then there's forces. Right? Think about it. Like, those are the anatomies of a trend. Like, a moment is that thing that's just a quick pop, quickly blows up, has a bit of buzz, and then dies off. Like, I'm sorry to say this, like the Corn Kid. Do you know Corn?
I do
It's
know
corn.
Right. That's an example of a moment. That was a moment that happened. It blew up in a few short weeks. People were stopped creating content. It was sort of like, sort of went by the wayside, versus something like a signal, which is a content pattern. Whether it is, a lot of that is stuff of like day in the life content, or what's in my bag, or
Get ready with me.
Get ready with me. That is an example of a signal. And then you have forces, which is these large cultural shifts that just play out for months and months at a time. Even, I don't want to sing because it's going to hurt, but like, oh no, no.
Yeah.
Like, that is a force that only exists on TikTok. When anytime someone messes something up, that song plays in the background, and that is like a major sort of force of content on the platform.
Right.
And what's interesting is so many marketers get freaked out when we say, like, play with trends. But it's important to know that not all trends are created equal, and not all marketers can be as agile or, operate in a way that they can participate in things like moments.
Right.
So then focus on signals or forces. Those are your different ins to trends. And I think that's a fair conversation for marketers to have with themselves. And it's okay to say, hey, we're a complex organization. We cannot be as agile as we need to be to participate
In the Corn song.
in the Corn song.
Which is too bad.
But that's fair, and that's okay. So then look at something like a force, or take a look at a major signal that's happening, and maybe that's your place to play. And so I would always say, especially, and we've talked about this in working with your clients, is creating playbooks that are like, we know we need to participate in trends, but not all trends look alike. Based on how we operate, the principles, or how we have as a business, maybe how many times we have to go through legal review, means, okay, let's identify more signals and forces, and that's where we play.
Because to your point, the moment is gone at that point.
Correct.
Yeah. So if we have to go through all of that, review of the videos and the legal, I'm always about play on words, so I had to bring that up. But the moment is gone if you have to go through all of that back and forth with your team. And I think about this often where, if you are a brand, like somebody, can I name a name? Can I name a name here?
Yeah.
Name a name.
Duolingo is great at moment trends, right? Where they'll hop on and it'll be within a day something will come up and they'll be right on it. And they're very quick with it. So I would imagine that maybe their review process is not as big.
It's just different,
Yeah.
and that's okay. And it's funny because trends has become this really sort of like, I feel like it's like a dirty word, and brands are really scared by it, and they're like, but I'm not a trend-based brand, so
Yeah.
what does that mean? And
Yeah.
people always think trends apply to certain verticals, right? Everyone, when you think trend, it's about like fashion, it's
Right.
about like beauty, the obvious ones, but there's trends in auto, there's trends in insurance.
Yeah.
You just have to, pay attention to what they are. I'm serious. There are trends in insurance.
I believe you, Neil.
No, there are like seasonal rhythms, right? Like I need to think about like how I'm getting my house ready for the winter. Insurance company, give me some content about that.
Right.
But like don't leave your candles unattended.
During Halloween.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Pumpkin spice season.
Okay, content trend number 3 is be production principled. What we mean by that, think about safe zones, right? There's native tools that overlay on top of your asset. Think about that. Think about creative refreshes. Creative burns out really quickly on TikTok, right? TikTok moves so quickly. It's such a fast clip, such a fast pace. Have you ever seen the same TikTok twice?
No.
Correct.
Because
Yeah.
there's so many TikToks out there.
Right.
Yeah, you're not
But if
going
you ever did, you'd kind of get annoyed a
Yeah.
little bit. And so this is the other thing is be production principled. Again, really think about having iteration in your back pocket, right? When you cut assets, be like, let's try 5 or 6 different cuts of it. Put one up there, see how it performs, and know that we at least have a couple of options in our back pocket.
Right.
The creative code number 4 would be stick to a structure. There's so many structures. We've talked about this, like a day in the life, an aha moment, a journey. These are story structures, and we don't see a lot of marketers really owning a structure, creating episodic content around day in the life, behind the scenes, a day at Jan Kelly.
Right.
Again, Duolingo, I think you brought them up, but they do a good job of that.
I'm wondering, like, is it smart for a brand? So for like a day in the life, if you only did a day in the life, wouldn't that be like people would start to be a little like, or no? No, you're like, no, that is a principle. That's a code. That's a creative
It's
code.
not a code. I think it's just more of different ins. And again, really thinking about a structure or starting with, if you're new to the platform, is create a sort of territory for yourself to start to play in and do that exploratory work before you then sort of expand out. And there's so many different story structures. And I just gave you sort of quickly
Right.
3 examples of that.
Are you saying just pick a structure and like when you're creating your content, choose a structure? Or are you saying pick one and stick with that one moving forward
I mean,
all the
start with
time?
a structure.
Yeah.
Right? Be known for something. Be comfortable playing within a bit of a narrative framework, and then move beyond that. You don't want to be sort of stuck in that pattern, but it is about this notion of think episodically. Again, because of the waterfall of content you see on TikTok, it's a lot of content you're consuming. So again, at least start to build that sort of muscle and that rigor, and then explore a different structure or a different approach. I think what happens sometimes is some brands are just so all over the place. It's kind of like, I don't know what to expect from you when you show up in my feed.
Right. I feel like, and tell me if I'm wrong, but I feel like one of the things that you were trying to get at is like, is that still exciting to do like a day in the life nowadays? And like, am I totally wrong?
No,
Or-
that
yeah,
is
okay.
that is exactly what I meant. It's like, okay, let's say
Yeah.
it's you and you're doing it on behalf of Jan Kelly. It's
Right.
like, do people care about a day in the life of Jan Kelly every day?
No, and I feel like maybe that's
No.
where you do. And isn't no,
No,
I don't mean
they
that. But what I mean by that is that like Jan Kelly per se, like we could do like a fun creative twist on that, and I feel like it's all about getting the hook out there, and maybe doing something a little bit different to keep that user engaged. And to your point, finding that format that works for you as a brand, and then venturing out after. It's kind
But
of like
what's also funny is something as simple as day in the life
Yeah.
looks so different in so many different hands.
Right.
And I'd say what's interesting is if you think about like we all have mobile phones on us, is also give that structure and put it out and disseminate and see what it looks like when you give it to 15 different people. We did this exercise that was incredible where we took 3 creators and the brief was simple. Create a TikTok promoting a plain white t-shirt. Like that was the brief, like the most simple thing you could ever imagine. And you should see how different the content came back. Like wildly different. It was promoting, I mean, they had to promote a sale. So white t-shirts on sale. This one creator is very simple. It's like, here's a white t-shirt. Here's how I style it. Here's how I make it from day to night. One creator produced this TikTok. She's like in a field, is the most inspiring message about like returning to basics and starting fresh and like a blank slate. People were watching, people like almost weeping, like so cinematic. And then the third creator created this TikTok. It's a creator, he wears a terrible wig, talking about showing up at an ex's wedding wearing the white t-shirt as like a wedding dress, like just to mess with them. Such a simple brief, but such wildly different interpretations. And so I would also say, again, is cast that bit of a wide net for brands and see what comes back. And the way we've done that, which is really exciting, is we just launched a product called Brand Admission, which is super cool. So brands essentially create a mission and cast a net out to the creators to crowdsource content.
Oh, that's
Okay.
cool.
And then ultimately the brand, so you basically you issue, throw the brief out into the ether and see what comes back. And then the brand gets to decide, okay, which content they want to boost and put paid behind. And that creator, if your content gets selected, the creator gets paid.
Nice.
So it's a really cool product. It's sort of like an industry first, but it's really solving that thing of making sure creators are getting recognized and paid. But also this notion for brands to be like, let's see what comes back. And that's the biggest thing, is just that there's so many different ins and different approaches. And we, in our heads, we think certain things are going to, we think we know how it's going to come back, and you really don't, right? And that is what is so exciting to watch, is to sort of cast that net out there and see what comes back.
I think that's a really nice entry point for brands that do not know how to show up. To be like, all right, well, if we throw out a brief, let's see what comes back. And then you can be like, wow, breadth. But also it's like, okay, now we can kind of see what we are aligned with, and maybe we work with that creator moving forward more, or maybe we know now what style we can get away with and we can create.
And this is
for
the other
ourselves.
thing. What an amazing insight to be given as a brand is also how are creators interpreting us as a brand? What do they think about us? Like, how do they think we like to talk about ourselves, or that we want to hear ourselves as? And sometimes some of this stuff is what's so fascinating. It's the gap analysis of you throw it out there and you see what comes back, and you're like, wow, we've not been hitting the mark. Like, this is clearly, there's an aspect about our business that's not resonating. And so I think that is what is so interesting, and it's why I even talk about the importance of like, just put work on the platform.
Right.
Iterate. Not everything's going to take off. And it is more interesting just to see, like, what is the feedback? What's resonating? Like, find those gaps to also even identify if you're doing brand work, even for work that's agnostic, that's off of TikTok. You want to understand, like, okay, here's this mass platform. How do people interpret us if we ask them to say, you know, take the shampoo and show us how it's, you know, how it brings you your day to life.
Right.
And you're like, wow, we really not doing a good job there. It's interesting.
It reminds me of the conversation that we had with Leanne Allaire last year, and she's a creator herself, and she's like, allowing creators to take a product and sort of use it in the way that they would also gives brands an idea of like, yes, how people actually speak about your product. It's like you have like all these talking points about like this is like the right way to talk about our product, and she's like,
Right.
People talk about it how they talk about it, and like you might not totally realize how people use your product. You
And
might
this
not.
is my favorite thing is we
Yeah.
expect as marketers, we expect consumers to use our brand language
Yes.
and give it back to us, just to be like, I found that shampoo to be relaxing with a herbal burst that set me on my day. You're like, no one talks about
This is
that.
a trusted brand that I can use reliably, and
Correct.
it's like no one. Yeah, and so she was saying actually how sometimes brands will be like, would you mind saying it like this? And she's like, no, I'm going to say it how I
And
say
we
it.
say
And
that
actually,
too is when you work with a creator, you brief them like you brief a director. It's like you don't tell Spielberg how to tell a story.
Right.
It's the same thing with a creator as
Yeah.
well, because that's when it feels inauthentic, is when you hand them and you're like, here are the 17 words you need to say. Like, it just doesn't land. And again, we're all savvy enough. We all know, and we can all smell it from a mile away.
This again, the second I smell an ad on TikTok, it's see you later. I don't want it. I want to see it how it's meant to be on that platform. So again, to your point, if it's you know, a content creator taking that brand and bringing it to life in their own way, I feel like that just is so much more authentic, and I'm more willing to spend my time watching that versus, you know, a quick 5-second ad about I don't know, shampoo.
The nation's
Yeah.
number one trusted shampoo.
Shampoo.
Yes.
One thing
Because
that
now I trust it too.
the one thing that is a focus for us is as we talk about like having stopping power, because you talked about that, and
Yeah.
sometimes ads you're like, why and why you want to swipe through is what's interesting is we just launched this product, it's called Pulse, which is guaranteed ad placement next to the top 4% trending content in a single vertical. So if you think about, we talk about how TikTok is this trend-based platform. How do you guarantee if you're in, let's just say the food vertical, that you're next to the content that is poppin'? This is a new solution, which is basically guaranteed adjacency to the top 4% trending content. So again, there are solves. If you're a brand that isn't super trendy, isn't like blowing up, that is a powerful tool, and a way to do that is to be adjacent to those things that really are resonating and taking off. And what's amazing is when you actually watch the halo effect from a brand lift. Like, again, you can run traditional brand ads on TikTok, but again, it's all about relevancy.
Yeah.
So again, this is the potential solve, certainly for brands that are maybe wanting to dip their toe in the water, maybe aren't working with creators yet, or creating work that's really native. That's a really cool solution. Which takes us to the fifth sort of creative code, which is this notion of like hold attention with stimulation. Again, think about a feed environment. How do you create that stopping power? Use things like emojis, quick cuts, you know, the traditional sort of narrative formula or how you produce for other platforms. It's not gonna fly on TikTok. And again, really just think about ways just to do those quick cuts or real sort of change and make the content, make sure that there is that sort of dynamicism that is gonna hold an individual's attention. Which leads to the sixth one, which is the one we've talked a lot about. Sound.
Except we haven't talked about it, and I want to talk about it.
Okay.
And because in our briefing notes, you were talking about how like brands can show up and sort of have this like, what did you say? It was like a branded sound, but you said
Well,
a
sometimes,
word that was distinct sonic brand.
Sometimes when we talk about leveraging sound, we talk about to brands to say like, oh, you have a sonic identity, play with it, right? That's such an easy win to play with sound. Did you know this? I didn't know this. Home Depot actually has their own theme song.
Nope, did not know.
And it was blowing up on the platform where people are creating content with the Home Depot
Can you
song.
hum it?
I cannot. But think about, this is the one thing that's so amazing about sound. There's certain jingles we were singing off camera, and I don't know if I have the clearances to sing it. I don't know how this works. But these are these earworms that have been in our lives for how long? Since I was a child, and I still can sing them back to you word for word. And I think that's what is also fascinating is there are earworms. There are deep sounds that we forget that are in the back of our brains that, again, if you don't have a clear sonic branding, like the sound of a school bell, do you not, like if you hear a school bell, I get a bit of anxiety of like, I better get off the pavement
late.
and get in line. Like,
Law and Order.
right.
When you're like,
Sounds are so powerful and so evocative. And I think what is so fascinating, again, is brands, not a lot of brands are really leaning into the power of sound and how it just really, and again, it doesn't have to be as a jingle. Simply even some like ASMR is amazing. There are so many sound-based creators who produce original sound on our platform and that have become these new earworms. And so work with them.
Yeah.
Like creators are not just in the space of like shooting videos. Like some of them are just like creating these ear hooks and these worms that, again, I could sing to you and people can sing them back to me.
so are you saying that brands should develop a sonic identity? Or, I mean, I feel like yes, obviously, jingles, people get into jingles. Or is it that, okay, you might not have a sonic identity and that's fine, but leverage sound and
Leverage sound.
partner with people who are doing that.
Exactly that. And again, it's just it's so powerful, but is again a way to now start to build your presence on the platform. So Volkswagen did this one spot, which is ASMR, and it's just people like flicking the door handles and like all the various equipment inside the car, and edited together, it creates this like beautiful track. And again, it might not be a sonic brand that you have now, but you can start to seed that and build it over time.
In social dynamics now, the way, a lot of me, like myself personally and my friends will recite TikTok jingles back to each other, like sounds that are, very popular. It's just one of those things where it's like a cultural norm to, if you don't know it, you feel out of the loop and you're scared to be out of the loop. So that's why you want to spend more time on TikTok. And if you spend more time on TikTok, you know more sounds. So it's like this vicious cycle, but it really is like they stick out to you and they're memorable because they're fun and they're engaging. Like the corn kid, like going back to that is something like if somebody were to say to me, it's corn, I would say a big lump of knobs.
Right.
It has the juice.
It has the juice.
And again, and if you don't know, you need to go and watch.
If you don't know,
please go and watch that TikTok.
And it's amazing is to watch this stuff
Beautiful.
first off transcend the platform.
Yeah.
And now, like, I don't know if you noticed, like the corn kid was, I think he's like on a float in a parade. Chipotle did this amazing TikTok with him.
Yeah.
So this TikTok is, you don't see who it is. There's just someone is ordering all the items in their bowl like they want. They're like, we want the salsa, whatever. And they're like, do you want corn? And it pans up and it's the corn kid.
It's the corn kid.
Amazing.
Yeah.
Like, talk about just owning in, leaning on something that is a moment and just getting behind it, and so simple and just so brilliant.
The corn kid, for those that don't know, is like the new Walmart yodeling kid. He like took off on TikTok. It was this big deal, and it really, the sound and the variations that even came out of that, to your point, of people who will take sounds and will develop them and will work them, and then you have even more trends that are coming up. Like before, it wasn't a song; it was just a kid talking about some corn, and then it turned into a song.
I think the other thing is, for brands, everyone wants to sort of be the one that creates it or starts it, which is such a weird spot. And it's like, just sit back and listen. If you pay enough attention, you'll see these things start to surface. And that's usually the signifier of like when to lean in. Meaning, like clients, I don't know if you have this. You ever clients go, I want to go viral.
Yeah, less so now, but yes. Yes.
It's still something that comes up. And again, it's like, I don't think that's not the right question. The question really should be, how do I participate? And how do I, think about the different clues or signifiers that tell me maybe it's the time for us to participate and lean in? Mm-hmm. I think that's the bigger question.
Yeah, so obviously, Humanology on Air,
Yes.
we like to dive into the talks about AI. So we're wondering, where does TikTok land on the use of AI and, creating data-driven reports and content?
Yeah. I mean, sort of two buckets. And I'll just talk about the first bucket, which is we're sort of acknowledging and recognizing that literacy and understanding around AI is key, is super critical. Because there's a lot of information out there and not a lot of conversation happening about when and how AI is being used. And so we're very focused on making sure that the community understands and has access to tools and resources. So the first thing we're doing is we've built a tool already for creators to essentially, it's a toggle for them to essentially tag any work that they post to the platform that leverages any form of generative AI. Easier.
Right.
The big focus is really around building tools that then, anytime content is posted to the platform, they can recognize when generative AI is being used. So that sort of is a bit of a roadmap for us, and is a focus area for us, certainly, is to understand, and again, make sure that users understand when they're consuming content, it's important. And again, it's a topic that we're all learning as we go, and so I'd say a literacy standpoint is very important for us. The other piece is we're using and incorporating AI into a lot of our creative tools. So even just within Script Generator. And it's, again, never meant to replace the work of a creative, of a copywriter. It is, we look at Script Generator and some of these tools as really is supporting that notion of iteration and just helping, brands and businesses on the fly, even just to be able to upload copy points and just get inspiration of maybe how to retool it or how to tweak it or give it a bit more of an outcome-based, adjust the copy so it's a bit more focused on driving a specific business outcome.
Right.
So again, it's never meant to replace, it's meant to sort of help and support, again, that iteration. And we talked about this. Creative burns out very quickly on TikTok. So again, it's more, we see it as more sort of tools for enablement, especially to support within that area.
Right.
Totally.
Because even thinking about the way that we repurpose TikTok, and when you're going out to film a TikTok, it's always a good idea to have okay, so that was the base TikTok. That's what we wanted to film, but here's maybe it with a different ending, or maybe here's the way that we set it up differently at the beginning. And then that way you can test a lot of different outcomes and see, what's going to better resonate with your target, and what's going to perform better on the app. So even using AI maybe to help you generate, here's my base TikTok and here's the outcome of it, but maybe I want to have a different ending, or maybe I want to have a hook. Like there's opportunity
and
to
there's
kind of
solutions
take
there that are less AI based and
Yeah.
more just based on performance
Right.
and doing real time sort of like optimization of creative. So taking
Right.
stuff, and doing like dynamic uploading new assets and basically letting the platform sort of recut it based on and driving the outcome that you want. And again, it's not meant to replace the work that you
fine.
do.
Just replace me.
Don't go there. Let's not get dark.
It's fine.
I think what's fun is, we talk about AI, and yet the other thing that's wild is that there is a bit of a return to craft. But it's been democratized. And what's fun to watch is creators producing stuff at home, using their mobile device, using a treadmill with a dinky car, and uploading it and watching just the community react to, like, how did you produce this? Like, how did you do this? And this sort of rally cry of people coming together and just sharing sort of like that behind the scenes and like empowering that way gives me a bit of optimism, but it's also really cool and exciting to watch.
There is joy in the doing. There is joy in the doing.
Correct.
Yeah.
And I think that will never be replaced.
Some of my favorite content is behind the scenes content, where you get to, whether it's a brand that's doing it or it's an influencer that I follow, if they have, another person filming them doing the TikTok and how they made it come to life, that to me is so awesome to be able to be like, yes, I got to see how you did it frame by frame, what effort you put into making this final product. And then they always hook you at the end, and then they say, swipe, like follow for part 2 or follow for the finished product. And like that to me, I'm like, I want to see
How do you feel? Because you have kids. And remember, so much of our childhoods, I think, was mystery.
Yeah.
Right? Because we didn't have access to behind the scenes or how things were done or how things were produced, right? Like you'd go to the movies and be like, wow, that just happened. And now you're like, you can go on other platforms. You're like, no, that's special effects. Like, I can see how they did it. Like, do you not find, especially with the younger generation, there's a real, like, again, return to like, I want to know how they did it.
Yeah.
How can I recreate something like that? Or I think
Yeah.
that is getting demystified in ways that it never did before.
My son watches, because every Marvel movie or show has a behind the scenes or like, and he watches all of them.
Right.
He wants to know how he'll like watch it, love it, and then he's like, okay, now how is Ms. Marvel made?
Dissect it and like how all the
Yeah.
pieces kind of come together. And I think that is a really, really interesting
Yeah.
thing that has changed. Because again, I'm of a generation where you just consumed what was handed to you and you just sort of like accepted it and you're like, this is it. Or you didn't get to see it through another lens or another form of interpretation. And this is where brands can also bring values to things, is to say, here's a narrative or a content or a style you're used to seeing. How do we put a different spin on it or inject our values into it? And we talk about this. It's the notion of community-based ideals. So it used to be like community-based ideas, but this is this other big trend we're seeing is community-based ideals. And what's interesting is when a brand can also empower, bring an ideal, or introduce by partnering with a different creator or a different point of view. Because again, I think about myself and when I was young, and again, like, as someone who's queer, like, there was zero content for me. Like, there was no place for me in like a lot of industries, and it can feel very isolating. And I think brands and having this platform that is more open and democratized means, and that's what I get excited about, is that it's like suddenly now we can connect and storytell, and it doesn't have to be for the masses and for everyone.
Yeah.
Which is really cool to see happen.
It's reminding me of something that you said last time you were here about, it's like, well, it's not just like, if you're a beauty brand, it's not just about like selling your beauty products to like the mass, like go goth, like go sub community, like really like get down there and find a really super niche audience.
Because
which
there
is
are
cool.
audiences and there are voices that are not being served. And I think so often brands think that they're showing up and representing their community. And I would argue probably not as much.
Probably
as
not. Yeah,
they're
really.
upset.
Yeah.
Again, especially when you look at our country and you look at the diversity, even from coast to coast,
Mm-hmm.
in how people think, in how people approach, what a day in the life looks like.
Yeah.
I bet you it looks very different in Vancouver than it does in Eastern Canada.
Right.
And these, again, we just sit here and it's funny because I live and work in Toronto, so I just assume the world revolves around me. But we need to recognize like stories look really different to different communities.
So we
Yes.
have talked about creative codes. There are 6. Let me remind you. There is TikTok first. Just make it for TikTok. You get it. Connect with trends. And by the way, connecting with trends could be a moment, a signal, or a force.
I am so proud of you. This is amazing. This is
This
I
is
give
a
you
memory in
props.
action.
Yeah.
Star people.
Be production principled, which kind of feels like TikTok first, but it's not.
No.
Why?
Again, TikTok first is native. Production principled is really, again, having that discipline, at the production phase, like when shooting, like shoot auxiliary content, to your point. Create
Like
those.
plan.
Exactly.
I feel like it could be,
The
instead
B-roll
of
stuff.
be production principle, it could be plan. In your what? I'm joking. Do what you want in your life. Okay, TikTok first. Connect with trends. Be production principled, which means you're planning at the production level and phase. You're sticking to a structure. Find a structure and just stick to it, and then expand. Hold attention. And finally, build with sound, which actually the sound part feels very new to me. I like this idea of thinking about sound in a new way and not just doing visuals and stuff. Neil, thank you for coming. I appreciate it. Thank you for co-hosting.
I know.
Thank
This
you.
is exciting. Nice to meet you.
Nice to meet you.
Stay off dirt bikes.
I will stay off dirt bikes.
Do I?
Word from the wise.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Josiah, who sometimes co-hosts with Jen, had a nasty spill, and just a reminder to all those viewers out there: recognize when you're no longer a teenager. It's an important life lesson.
Learn your limits.
Learn your limits. Yes.
Wear a helmet
Wear a helmet.
Yeah.
And
or
that's
bubble
it.
wrap.
or bubble wrap.
Yeah.
All right. Thank you so much for joining us. We will see you next time. Take care. Bye.
Bye.